Well, looks like you're new to Orcs and you're thinking about collecting, aren't ya? You've come to the right place. Check this video out. Greetings, boys and gits, and welcome to Dread Waaagh Gaming. Now, Waaagh, let's start with that, is an orc way of shouting war, basically. And it's also a way of showing excitement and contentment because war is an orc's passion. Yeah, that's right. Orcs love to fight. They actually bloody well enjoy it. Yeah, so they never really lose. Even if they lose, they had a fight, so they win. Brilliant. There's the first reason you should collect Orcs, because you ain't never going to lose a 40k battle again. That is guaranteed, because you'll always have fun. Orcs are a green-skinned, usually, big, bulking, hulking, mean, green, busting machine. What can I say? They are a animal stroke fungus creature. Basically, these things reproduce through spores. So when you kill an orc, if some stupid space marine comes running at an orc with his chainsword and catches the orc unawares and manages to cut him open and cut him to bits, if the orc isn't able to survive through surgery, or even if he is, regardless, either way, even when he's running around and he's breathing, he's always expelling spores. Just like mushrooms do. If you've ever kicked a puffball fungus and seen all the spores come out of that, or you've ever seen one of those mushrooms where you just touch it and it shoots a little jet into the air, orcs kind of do that. You know, it's just oozing off of them everywhere, all the time. So once you've had orcs in your neighbourhood, you sure as hell ain't bloody well ever getting rid of them. In fact, you're better off just to blow your planet up or fuck off somewhere else, because you ain't never getting rid of the buggers. Orcs are probably among the most resilient races in 40k. 40k is short for Warhammer 40,000, but I'm sure if you made it this far, you've already done a little bit of groundwork. So you've already decided that you like the look of them. Now, you might be interested in the comic relief aspect of them, or the fun cartoony aspect, or you might be interested in the brutish, dark, very grim look about the orcs, or you might be interested in how they play, or you might be interested in... There's so many different things about the orcs to be interested in. Even their cousins and other orcoid species, namely grots or Gretchen. These guys. There's lots of different types of orcs out there, or orcoid species, should I say. And those include squiggly beasts, or squigs. And these can be, as Games Workshop's models represent, they could be tank busters, or they could be biting squigs. But they're also utility squigs, for every purpose. I mean, if you think of a job that an orc needs done, there's probably a squig for that purpose. I mean, there's probably a squig mop, not that orcs clean. There's probably a squig that you use to wipe your bum, but I don't suppose they bother with that. There's probably one you can use as a toothbrush. Again, don't know if they bother with that. But the ones they might use might be like the squig pipes to make music with, or one that you can squish into a nice tasty brew, and one that you can squeeze for oil. And Games Workshop do oil squigs, or they at least used to. I don't know if they still do. I don't know. I ain't bought any of their squigs for a while. But they do make some really cool Age of Sigmar squigs that you can actually buy and convert over for 40k. But that's a little bit advanced for a beginner, so we'll leave that for another episode. Now, as a beginner, I do advise you to go and watch my Start Collecting Orcs video just here. And in that one, I talk to you about how Games Workshop would have you approach your collecting orcs. So Games Workshop, of course, are a business, and they are the people that are producing orcs, and they're the ones that created them in this setting. So obviously you're going to turn to them. But what that video is designed to do is to make you realise that if you was to follow and just take the hand and be led by Games Workshop, then of course they're going to lead you down the garden path, and they're going to make sure you spend a pretty penny doing it. So in that video, I put together 1,000 points of orcs, and that's not very many. If you would check out my 1,500 point orc army list there, that's 50% more orcs than they've got in, you know, a 1,000-point list. So yeah, it's not very many, but when I put them together, the models with the paints and with the literature that you need to play orcs and to play Warhammer 40,000, and the tools that you require to do these things. If you're starting out, you don't already, we're assuming you don't have brushes and you don't have all the things that you need, clippers and files and all of that. If that's the case, and you purchase it from Games Workshop, you're going to come to a grand total of about 800 quid. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. So in this episode, Dread is going to show you how an experienced orc player might advise you to save some money and how you can go about collecting orcs in a much more productive kind of a way. So, before I do actually get down to the nitty gritty and show you what I think you should get and how you can save some money and how you can bend a few rules and be a freebooter like Dread, I better tell you kind of what a freebooter is and a little bit more about orcs. As I mentioned, there are many types of orcoid species. You've got the squigs, you've got the Gretchen and the grots and the snots. These are the little guys. These orcoids are often the first to grow from the mushrooms because they will tend to the mushroom fields and to the other orcoid species as they're developing. So they kind of set society up, they build the first buildings and structures and the mainframe bits and bobs that are required for an orc culture to spring up from somewhere. So yeah, grots are very, very fundamental and necessary in orc society, and they fulfill many roles even as the tribe grows and swells and bigger orcs take dominance. The grots and snots still fulfill very important roles and tasks, even if the orcs themselves don't really see it as important. It is. In the grand scheme of things, orcs wouldn't survive without the grots and snots, let's be frank. Next up in line from the little guys, you get your orcs, your standard orcs. But they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So let's talk about some of the main shapes and sizes that they come in, shall we? So your typical teenager, as such, would be your orc youth. After the youths come the boys. Now these are like your adults, I suppose, and boys fulfill every role you can imagine pretty much on the battlefield. So boys ride bikes, they shoot rockets, they strap rockets to their back to become storm boys. They literally do all the main tasks and all the main specialisms. They can become commandos, they can become all sorts of things. So when they reach adulthood, they tend to specialise or tend to just mob up as boys who like to fight or shoot or whatever it be. They generally are led by a bigger orc, and the bigger orc is called a knob. Ha! Yeah, exactly. Do you want to see my knob? Here he is. And knob basically stands for noble, right? So he's a noble, he's a leader of orcs. At least that's what they say it stands for. I think the boys might have a different opinion about that knob that's leading them. That might be where the name comes from if you ask me, because orcs do have a bloody good sense of humour. And then they get to a certain size where they're just bigger than everyone else. And then they look at the current leader of their tribe, the current war boss, and they decide, oi, mate, I think I could have you, right? And then they go to the fight pit, and whoever wins is the war boss, right? So it's a very dog-eat-dog, survival of the fittest, climb to the top if you're the toughest kind of society, and it really works. This is the beautiful thing about orc societies, it works. They even have a currency that works, which is teeth. They actually all develop teeth. They drop out or get knocked out, and then they spend them. And it kind of works because the smaller ones have got just the right amount of teeth for their needs, and the bigger ones have got bigger teeth, more value for their needs. So it's a nice currency, and it never disappears because they're always being replaced. So you know the market ain't going to do all sorts of silly things. So actually, orc culture's got a lot of good things going for it. They don't necessarily infight as much as people think, because they all kind of know their place. Oh, they love to fight. Let's not get that wrong. They love to fight, but the order and the status quo isn't too often interrupted, and you don't get the sneaky mind games and trickery and political bullshit that you get with humans and other species. Orcs are simple, but that doesn't mean they're stupid. Oh no. Now, you might have heard through Imperial propaganda that Orcs are stupid. But indeed, if Orcs were stupid, they wouldn't have a sense of humour, would they now? And they wouldn't be able to create everything that they do. Oh, sorry, have you already heard that excuse as well? Well, you see, they do try to say that Orcs create their technologies and stuff with some built-in DNA memory that's been inserted by what the Imperial propaganda would say is their creators. So it's not canon lore, but it's becoming that way because enough people are bought into propaganda, and that's how propaganda works after all. But Imperial observers in the literature have written about the Orcs, and what they've said has been picked up by other Imperial officers and by the public who read these books, and they've believed it to be true. So the story is that Orcs were created by a race called the Old Ones. Now, the Old Ones, they existed in a time long before the current Warhammer 40,000 setting. But the idea of the Old Ones is they were being basically attacked by some nasty evil gods who were using this other race as their kind of weapon. And they were kind of a bit tough to get rid of. A very difficult thorn in the side, as it were. And apparently the Old Ones, who some speculate were like frog people, don't buy that. But anyway, the Old Ones, some reptilians or whatever they were, they basically built the Eldari, or the Eldar, to anyone who is a little bit more old school and doesn't buy into copyright bullshit. The Eldar and the Orcs were created, apparently, as weapons. Races that were designed to, in the Eldar's case, psychically, and in the Orcs' case, physically, destroy the enemy. I don't buy it myself. It doesn't sit right with me. There's also rumours that the Old Ones could well have been the Snotlings, the little buggers. That kind of fits a little bit better because these guys always set up the society before the Orcs turn up. It's believed that they've lost or they've degraded their intelligence since. So that's why they're not up to that task of manipulating the Orcs so much as they used to be. But then again, I don't know whether that story is true or not. All we know for certain is how they are now, right? That's all we really know. You can observe their technology, you can observe their brutal cunning, and cunning is something that is often used to describe Orcs, so I don't know many cunning and stupid people, don't know about you. And they're also very inventive, you know? They create inventive ideas and they have a very varied culture. And by that I mean, Orcs don't just separate by their size and their class in society, but they also separate by their passions. So their passions are represented by clan cultures. So if you're an Orc who particularly likes speed, then you might become an evil son. If you're an Orc that just likes to get stuck in and have a fight, then you might be a goth. If you're an Orc that likes to break the rules and you don't like to do anything the normal way, then you might want to become a freebooter like Dread. Or you might decide you just like big snazzy guns and you like to have all the show-off bling, and you can become a bad moon show-off like 6+ Stevo. But the idea with these clans is that they are cultures or career paths, or a bit like musical taste in this life. You get people that are rockers, you get people that are into hip hop, and you know, you've got all these different types of musical taste. Now, they don't define really what that person is about, they just define their flavour, yeah? And that's really what the clans are about. So that's why Orc armies can include Orcs of any clan. The Codex now encourages you to mix them, which I think is a great thing. So you can get little perks from, say, Evil Sons. Well, them buggers, they like speed, so they're a little bit faster. And Orcs do believe that red paint makes things go faster as well. So, you know, it makes sense. Bad Moons, they like big shooty guns. So they paint themselves yellow to represent the moon, and just to show off because it's a bit blingy. It's kind of a golden yellow, you know. They like a lot of jewellery and a lot of showy offy stuff, snazzy weapons and all the best kit. So they have perks that allow them to re-roll shooting, you know, because that's their speciality. So you can mix these up and you can have a mixed army. So don't think that you're restrained to having one clan, because you're not. It has been said that if all the orcs in the galaxy would stop fighting each other and actually unified, then they'd have no trouble in conquering the entire galaxy, because they're kind of unstoppable. And once they set their mind to go into war with a planet, once they've arrived, their spores are there anyway. So generally, they're going to win eventually. Even if they don't win the first battle, or the second battle, or the third, eventually they're going to win. They're going to wear you down until you've got nothing left, and they'll just keep coming. So they really are a plague on the galaxy. A nice big green brutal one. One final thought to have before we go looking at what you should start collecting is about Orc Intelligence. Now, it's often alleged that orcs are stupid, and they are often seen as the comic relief in 40k, and we often end up with a bunch of crappy themed silly models for the orc range. Now, proper orc collectors probably have a mixed feeling about this, and I'll explain that. It's because we do like to, of course, have any orc miniatures, and it's nice to have things that are fun and themed and all the rest of it. Great fun. But you've got to get the core right first. And this is the issue. If you become an orc player and you look across the orc range, you're going to find some serious inconsistencies in the quality of the miniatures. So we have all in the orc community been banging on for a very long time to get a lot of our models that are, some of them 20 years or more older, replaced and have the whole range actually work. So we wouldn't mind a little bit of attention like the Space Marines have had, although we wouldn't want the bloody resizing, so don't even think about it. So speaking of the orc range, as I say, there are a few things there that you might want to avoid because they're bloody horrible and they're old. So wait for the new ones when they eventually, one day or 1 year, whenever, sometime in the future, appear. Or you can make your own. And in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can make your own or collect your own orcs from elsewhere. You don't have to just go down this GW stream as they would have you believe. So without further ado, let's take a look at what Dread recommends for you. First up, we have, of course, the Start Collecting Orcs box set. Strangely, some people say that you shouldn't even bother with this, but you definitely should, because you're getting a discount. You're getting a bunch of stuff for free in there. You're basically getting your knobs and your pain boy free, because, you know, this box costs the same as the boys and the Death Dread anyway, so it's definitely worthwhile, especially if you're just starting out, because you've got loads of spare bits. And yeah, definitely I would suggest you buy this box. Other than that, I would say you should get your War Boss and knobs, as I suggested in the other video. So far we haven't changed too much, but I'm going to change a few things. So we're going to get one box of boys rather than two this time around. Truth be told, you'll never buy enough boys. You're always going to want boys. So anytime you pop in a shop and you've got a bit of change, buy yourself some more boys, because there's so much you can do with them. You can actually make all your specialist units with them. We're also going to get some Gretchen. They're going to fulfill the other troop organisation slot, and you also get a runt herd in there too. Now, they're not particularly worthwhile at the moment, but I've got a plan for that miniature, so we'll come back to that in a short while. Next up, we've got a squad of killer cans. So you get 3 killer cans in this box, and you're going to have some spare bits left over. And as an orc, you're going to want lots of nice gubbins in your bits box. So this is definitely worthwhile having, and it will complement your Death Dreads. The Wasbomb Blaster Jet will allow you to build a Dakka Jet for your army, or a Burner Bomber, or a Blitzer Bomber, but it also comes with loads of spare bits and bobs, so that's definitely worth getting too. The other thing I'm suggesting is 2 trucks. You can either build the 2 trucks and have them as transports in this 1000-point list, or you can use them for bits. You can do all sorts with the truck kit. It's gold. And a weird boy. The last thing I'm going to suggest is a weird boy, but I don't suggest you buy this one, because look at that chain. Awful detail, isn't it? And we're trying to save money. So this is where that runt herd comes in, because you can very easily convert that runt herd into a weird boy, and then you've saved some money. So the first thing to say about all of those things is that 1000-point list there should all be bought from a 20% discount retailer. So don't go direct to Games Workshop. Find a 20% discount retailer like Goblin Gaming and purchase it from them instead. Another way you can save money is to actually build things for yourself. So scratch building, converting and kit bashing. This is why I insist that it's good for you to have a good Orky bits box. So the more bits and bobs you've got, the more use you can make out of them, if you get me. And then of course you've got third party companies, which Dread specialises in. So go and check out my third party focus series to see what's available for you. Now here's where the real freebooter part kicks in. The rules and the codex and all the subsequent rule books that you're going to need afterwards and all the rest of their publishings. Dread suggests you do the naughty thing and download this. It's free, it's available from everywhere, you can find it on the internet and you shouldn't feel bad about it, trust me. As far as I'm concerned now, the books that they publish are a con. They are a way of forcing people to spend money that they don't necessarily need to spend anyway. I think it's a farce. And of course, if you need further evidence of this, just go and check out my video about the Codex Orcs Special Edition, and you'll basically get the idea. There are, of course, other things that you're going to need, and I did cover those in my last video where I talked about starting collecting Orcs, so I'm again going to go through the same things from that list, but show you how you can get them much cheaper. So, to start with, a tape measure. A tape measure can be bought from any hardware store, and it will only cost you a couple of quid instead of over a tenner. Dice you can find online for only a couple of quid. Wound trackers you can make for yourself out of plastic card or spare bases or cardboard, anything really. The data cards, again, I would suggest you print these off, download them and print them off. Clippers, again, can be found online for much cheaper, as can mould line removers and a pin vise and files. And if you're going to use super glue, you might as well use the best, so get yourself some Bob Smith. And the same applies with your liquid polystyrene cement. So liquid poly by Humbrol is my weapon of choice in that regard. I also suggest you get some green stuff, and you can buy this much cheaper if you buy it in a roll like this, and the two parts aren't going to mix, so much better off. A painting mat can also be purchased from third-party retailers, and brushes. And when it comes to making a wet palette, I don't suggest you buy one, I suggest you make one yourself, because it's really just a Tupperware pot with some sponge and some grease-proof paper. Or not the greasy stuff, but the non-greasy stuff. You know the stuff I mean. Baking sheet. Also, some undercoat, which you can get from the pound shop. You don't need to go spending a fortune on this. The stuff for auto cars, if it's good enough for a car, it's good enough for your models. So the pound shop is where to go for that. And as for paints, you could be getting 33% more paint for 33% less cost if you go with the likes of Vallejo. So I suggest you get all the colours I suggested in a Vallejo alternative, and you are going to save yourself some decent money. And finally, before I go, one last little hint for you is to check out eBay and the Facebook 40k sales, you know, you could get marketplace there, don't you? Check those out, because you can often get yourself a nice little bargain. You know, you might have to strip some paint off of something, but that's easily done. You can watch some YouTube videos on that. But yeah, you can save yourself some serious money by just going on eBay and bidding on a few things. So I recommend you do that too. And I think that draws this episode to a close, guys. I hope that I've been at least useful or helpful to you if you're new to 40k. If you've any suggestions or any other things you'd like to point out for newbies, please add them in the comments. And if this video was useful, please let me know. If it isn't, also let me know. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Go away now.